start with the motions then. Motion 6.1 is in the name of Assembly Member Prince. Can I ask you to move your motion? And there is an amendment going around. Just indicate to us whether you're willing to accept that or not.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm not prepared to accept the amendment. I think it's a crying shame that once again the Labour Party have chosen to try and politicise an issue which is a grave issue where a number of Londoners died. I think it is disgraceful, actually, that they're trying to work against the GMB, who are protecting their members, whose one of members actually died on that tram. The GMB have called for an independent investigation, and by making their amendment, they are completely letting the Mayor off the hook. And this would allow him not to actually appoint an independent investigation. I think it's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. I will do my speech as I'm going to. There's no politics in it at all. It was purely about trying to get to the bottom of what went wrong on this issue. I actually do believe it's quite probable that it's cock up, but when things like this happen, when Labour come up and get the Mayor off the hook, then clearly there's more to be seen, and this makes it even more obvious that there's something to hide. It's terrible, really terrible. Anyway, I'll do my speech. It won't take more than 5 minutes. So today I put to you a motion calling upon the Mayor to appoint an independent investigation to review why TfL failed to supply critical tram safety evidence to the Croydon tram crash investigator, the Office of Road and Rail and the British Transport Police following the Sandilands tram crash. Many of you may find it strange that someone who sits on the right of the Conservative Party would be here today putting forward a motion based on a motion from GMB Union. But the reality is that they are raising the same concerns as we have in the past too, both of which stem from the great work done by tireless volunteer safety campaigner Tom Carney. More importantly, I believe this issue goes beyond politics. It is not just about ensuring that everything possible is done to understand what went wrong on that dreadful day, but discovering and understanding what other factors could or may have contributed to this tragedy, and what lessons can be learned from the future. We have all heard numerous versions as to who asked who to do what when, different reasons as to why the report was not presented until as late as it was, but that cannot be good enough. In reality, we do not know whether it was cock-up or conspiracy, and that simply cannot be accepted. We need a definitive answer to these and many more questions, and we need a truly independent inquiry into this matter so it stops all the speculation around it. Thank you.
Okay, can I have Assembly Member O'Connell to second the motion?
I'll formally second and reserve my right to speak.
So, formally second. Okay. Can I call upon Assembly Member Twycross to move the amendment which is circulated?
Okay. Thank you. I think I find it deeply regrettable that we couldn't get agreement on an amendment that everybody could support. Londoners will never forget the Croydon train derailment, which saw the loss of 7 lives and 72 people injured. The tragic incident will forever act as a painful and important reminder of the need to keep safety on all forms of transport in the capital the highest priority. And when in the shadow of that awful event at Sandilands, a further incident concerning driver fatigue was reported at Church Street, it was vital that swift and appropriate action was taken, and TfL undertook those necessary extra steps. It therefore seems somewhat distasteful that colleagues on the other side of the chamber are using something so serious, a tragedy, for what I would only deem political game playing. I think the game's being played on the other side. This is not normally how this body would conduct itself in a matter in which people remain in a state of grief over this tragedy. We know that of their own instigation, TfL commissioned an internal audit to examine the effectiveness of fatigue management processes at the tram operators' first group. We know that they immediately notified the Rail Accident Investigation Branch and the Office for Rail and Road. We know that they also made the British Transport Police, who are still carrying out an investigation, aware, so that their family liaison officers could sensitively bring this incident to the attention of the victims and families of those who'd lost their lives in the Sandilands incident. Of course, as all politicians and public services worth their salt should know, there were always lessons to be learnt from these events, and it's clear and understandable that this is the message from the GMB, particularly if you read the full motion. TfL have rightly held their hands up and conceded that this audit should have been immediately sent to investigators and the regulator. That this didn't happen was the result of human error, and I think Assembly Member Prince has noted that it is probable it is a cock-up. And TfL took immediate action to rectify this. GMB's motion acknowledged the openness and transparency shown by TfL at this time. And GMB's motion included far more than that being cherry-picked here by the Conservative group to suit their shallow agenda. Had members opposite done their research, they would be aware that the lead investigator publicly stated that had they received this information sooner, it would have made no difference to their conclusions regarding the Sandilands incident. TfL has subsequently changed their procedures to ensure that any audit of material importance to a live investigation is flagged and automatically forwarded to the investigators and regulator. With that in mind, we seek to amend this motion to put on record our agreement with the GMB that there were serious questions to answer with regards to the Croydon tram crash, that those questions are being addressed by TfL and investigators, and that the GMB should be made fully aware of these findings by TfL and the Mayor. The motion in its original form put forward by the Conservative group is deeply flawed, potentially misleading and potentially hurtful to those affected. At the best, this is a result of their ignorance. After all, TfL has explained at length and publicly the reason for this serious oversight. At worst, it's political opportunism in its most vile form, latching on to serious events which saw the loss of human life. As such, we will not support it as it stands, and we seek to amend as stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Understanding Order 4.4, a member has requested a point of personal explanation. If you can give it quickly.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Appreciated.
Without answering any of the other points, in her opening remarks, the Assembly Member Twycross said it's a shame that we haven't been able to reach agreement on this. At no point has Fiona Twycross approached me in any way to see if we could find a way of an agreement. So that's very misleading, because
Okay.
no attempt has been made to come to any kind of agreement.
Thank you very much. Now, no. The member has asked me under section 4.4. He's raised it. He's made his comment. If you at this time want to... And in what way? And he named you, so we can go on like this for the rest of the day. And just let me put on record that members... It's by good practice and the way that we respect each other that we inform each other of amendments. There is no requirement for a member putting an amendment to be informed by a mover of an amendment.
Yes, I was made aware of the amendment. I'm not accusing you of that. I'm saying that at no point did Fiona Twycross, Assembly Member Twycross, approach me personally to see if there was any form of negotiation.
Okay. And yes, and we're just like now going to get into picking up a spot and making it into a real big saw. Can I just ask members to just, let's move on.
Sorry, I think that's very misleading. I think you should let Fiona speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because she did approach the seconder.
She didn't approach the mover of the motion, who has just said he wasn't approached and has clarified that. Right, if you want to approach me and raise a point of personal explanation, quoting section 4.4, just so we can have some order in this debate, I'm happy to hear you talk.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to clarify that although I didn't directly approach Keith Prince, I was approached by another member of the group at the beginning of the meeting, and so I've been discussing this issue with another member of the Conservative group who is named as a seconder throughout this morning. And actually, I felt that Keith Prince, Assembly Member Prince, was misleading in the way that he implied that I had not been trying to resolve this in advance.
And all I can say is that's just distracted us from a motion about a very important matter.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Londoners,
I agree.
So can we move on? And now, can I hear the seconder for this Labour amendment to Assembly Members Prince's motion? Okay. Right. Members for the debate? Assembly Member Pidgeon.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to support this motion. Indeed, it's an issue that I have been looking into for a long period of time, and I have asked extensive mayoral questions on this subject, and I'm really pleased this year that the Transport Committee is looking into bus and tram safety, because it's a very important area. But this motion relates to TfL's failure to hand over its audit report on fatigue management at a critical time. And although RAIB finally received this report, this was too late to incorporate into their investigation, though, as we've heard, they have said it wouldn't materially have changed their report. Their report into the tragic Sandilands crash was concluded and published in December 2017, but TfL only sent on its fatigue audit report in February 2018. It's also my understanding that a former TfL board member asked TfL senior officers for assurances that this important report had been sent to RAIB and was given assurances that it had, but then it turned out not to be the case. And one of my mayoral answers shows that TfL put down the failure to immediately share this report as an administrative error. And we know mistakes are indeed made, but when it comes to something so critical around health and safety issues, I don't feel that this vague description is good enough. So I do think we need a clear explanation as to how TfL has operated, and that is needed. And I do worry that this reflects something potentially in TfL's culture in terms of addressing how it addresses concerns that are raised by TfL board members, but also how health and safety concerns raised by staff and the public are addressed. And I think the process needs to be clear, it needs to change, and I do worry about some areas of TfL, and we've seen this elsewhere, whether it's the Garden Bridge, whether it's Crossrail. So I welcome and congratulate the Assembly Member Prince on putting forward this motion. I'm sorry it has turned into this tense discussion this afternoon, but I would like to say that more praise, I think, needs to go to those tireless campaigners out there, including Tom Carney, the GMB, and also those board members who are willing to ask those difficult questions. Now, in terms of the amendment, if it had said "and" instead of "or" in the fourth line, I'd be very happy to support it, but it doesn't, so I won't be supporting that. But I will be supporting however the motion is going forward for the final vote.
Okay, thank you. So, no other speakers. So let's... we've got 2 reserved rights. So, can I have Assembly Member Echeloni to speak on the amendment?
Yeah, just to say, Chair, that this isn't an issue that we are looking at on the Transport Committee, as Assembly Member Pidgeon mentioned. And I think because the investigation is still ongoing, this is a bit premature on this motion. As a proud member of the GMB, I'm happy that they have brought this forward and they continue to bring safety issues to the Mayor's attention and the Deputy Mayor for Transport's attention. But I think we have to be mindful of the fact that there are bereaved families, and what we're discussing in this chamber will be very difficult for them. So we have to make sure that we're discussing facts and not cherry-picking which parts of that motion which we want to discuss this afternoon. One of the things we will be doing on the back of our bus and tram investigation is writing a response to the Mayor, and I'm hoping that a number of these issues will be picked up. So again, I would ask members to support this amendment so that we can get clear consensus on something that is really, really important to Londoners. Thank you.
Assembly Member O'Connell, you reserved your right.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This has all turned into a rather unseemly debate this morning, with language on both sides that I think is regrettable, and I find that upsetting. Okay. Caroline has quite rightly pointed out the salient issues here around the lack of release of vital information. Caroline's put that very, very well. And I think there is a place for that to be looked into, and I think that is absolutely correct. That's why I was happy to second it in the first place. It is a great regret, though, however, that this morning we haven't been able to come to a meeting of minds on this tragic incident, despite best efforts from both of us this morning. And I regret that as well. 7 lives were lost. It's nearly 3 years ago, and that pain is still felt by people in New Addington, very much so. But there are questions to be answered, and I think the motion, as moved, raised that quite properly. I think it's correct. I regret that anyone on either side is suggesting there's any politics at play here, and if they had the opportunity to withdraw any of those points, I wish they would, but there probably won't be that opportunity. However, I do second the original motion, as committed, and I would ask colleagues to support it, if nothing else, to put to bed any suggestion that there was any real problems around process. There obviously was poor process, hence there wouldn't have been the investigation in the first place, hence there wouldn't have been the omissions in releasing the information. That needs to be settled independently to say that was an absolute cock-up, which I believe it was, and while I've got the opportunity, I'd like to thank those 2 3/4 years ago officers and senior officers of TfL and other public service officers that supported the families and victims at that time. Many officers of TfL did a grand job at that time. This is no critique of those good people. It's just to settle an outstanding worry and problem. And so therefore I do formally, again, second the original motion, Chair.
Okay. Assembly Member Twycross, your summation. Assembly Member Prince, your summation.
Thank you. This is a very serious issue, and I think there is an opportunity for us to come together and to find a compromise. And I would suggest that the compromise is that in the motion where it says calls upon the Mayor to appoint an independent investigation, the Labour amendment puts in the word or, which Assembly Member Pidgeon says is a sticking point. If the Labour Party are prepared to amend that to and, then I would be more than happy to accept the amendment, and I suspect that other members would too. Well, there you are. There you have it, Chair. That's one word, and that shows you the cynicism that we have here today, because that word lets the Mayor off the hook and completely negates what the GMB are trying to do. But thankfully, I don't have to answer to the GMB. Thank you.
Okay, can we see those in favour of the amendment?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favour of the amendment, Chair.
8 in favour of the amendment. Can I see those against the amendment?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 against, Chair.
10 against the amendment falls.
Vote on the substantive
Can I
motion.
see those in favour of the substantive motion?
That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Chair.
10 in favour of the substantive motion. Can I see those against?
And no votes against, Chair.
And no votes against. So the substantive motion is carried. Thank you.